So I already know that I am super late to the party on this topic. I'm typically late to most issues. It's kind of a disadvantage when you only do a podcast once a week. But, nonetheless, I couldn't not talk about this because Bernie Sanders returned to his normal badass self, and I couldn't be more happy. I think that what he did was fantastic. So last week on the show, I told you about Donald Trump's unusually cruel budget where he basically proposes cuts to programs that help out the poor, and simultaneously he's pushing for tax breaks for himself and his friends, so it's just a pro-oligarchic budget that would exacerbate income and wealth inequality, and it's wrong. So they had a Senate hearing for this new budget, and Bernie Sanders had the opportunity to question Trump's budget director, Mick Mulvaney, and it was just so great. So first of all, Bernie Sanders, before he even got into an exchange with Mick Mulvaney, because this is what typically happens, he just threw a bunch of questions at Mick and basically went on a mini rant. So it was amazing. So let's watch, and then we'll discuss the second portion.
Mr. Mulvaney, as you know, the United States today has more income and wealth inequality than any major country on earth. Top 1/10 of 1% now owns almost as much wealth as the bottom 90%. 52% of all new income today is going to the top 1%. But your budget thinks that it is good public policy to provide $52 billion in tax breaks to the wealthiest family in this country, a family already worth $128 billion. You think that a family like the Walton family, where one guy there owns 4 Ferraris and 1 Maserati, that are worth more than $65 million, are just in desperate need of massive, massive tax breaks. You think that Sheldon Adelson, who among other things contributed $5 million for the Trump inaugural, is in need of a massive tax break, as well as the Koch brothers. So my question is pretty simple, and I want you to tell the American people why you think it is a good idea to give $3 trillion in tax breaks to the top 1% at a time when the rich are becoming much richer, while at the same time you're going to throw 17 million children in this country off of health insurance because of the unconscionable cuts that you are making to Medicaid, why you're going to throw seniors in the state of Wyoming or the state of Vermont off the Meals on Wheels program, maybe the one nutritious program that they get a day, why you're going to throw women and low-income babies off of the WIC program at a time when infant mortality rates in this country are already high. Do you really think it is a great idea to tell a low-income pregnant woman that you're going to take away the WIC program, take away nutrition programs from children in order to give a massive tax break of $52 billion to the Walton family? Please explain your logic to the American people.
That was awesome. So what happened was Mick Mulvaney, he then proceeded to try to answer the question, but like Republicans typically do, he tried to dodge the question and lie and obfuscate the truth, but Bernie Sanders backed him into a corner and would not let him get a word in if what he was espousing was bullshit. So Bernie Sanders held him to account on every single word that he said, and I want every other senator and member of the House of Representatives to pay attention, because this is exactly how you hold someone accountable.
I'll see if I can handle each of those in reverse. Actually, let me deal with the CBO first. I can't disparage who I don't know, and I don't think I've ever disparaged the director of the
You made a dismissive remark about him.
I made it.
Even the CBO. You guys appointed the director.
And again, all I'm telling you is that the results are awful.
But you appointed him, so let's go with that.
I measure performance by results, Mr. Sanders. And if you continuously
Your
put out
opinion
bad
is
numbers,
that the results are terrible. I'm suggesting that it was a member of the Trump administration who appointed this gentleman, not some kind of radical Democrat.
So we can agree then that the CBO puts out bad data.
No, we
Okay.
can't. We can agree that you guys are beating up on a man that you appointed because you don't like his results. But anyhow, get back to the question.
I don't
Why
like,
tax
don't
breaks
like
for
the
billionaires
because
and
they're
cuts
not right.
for
WIC is,
working class kids?
WIC serves all the projected participants. There's no change there. Meals on Wheels is not reduced at all. The change that we make is through the
CBDG program, which you eliminate.
the block grant thing.
So you eliminate the block grant. You tell me that funds the program. You tell me that doesn't have an impact
No,
on
the
the
program is funded, Senator, through the old age or senior nutrition program, I think through HHS, which we don't change.
No, that's not true.
No, it is true, actually. The CDBG program is a block grant to the states,
Yes.
and some states do choose to use some
And
of that
you
money
eliminate
on
that
Meals on
program.
Wheels. And that
All right,
total...
the bottom line is...
Senator, I mean, if you...
Go ahead, answer the question.
The total money for Meals on Wheels that comes from CDBG is 3%. That's it.
Yeah,
and I don't know how you can possibly contend that we're
But
going
you
to
are
kill people with
eliminating
3%.
the program that funds not only Meals on Wheels, but many other programs at the discretion of governors and mayors.
I would be more than happy to have a long discussion about CDBGs. You asked about Medicaid as well. The slashing of Medicaid, the dramatic cuts to Medicaid, is a slower growth rate in Medicaid. There's 1 year exception during the Affordable Care Act where, the American Health Care Act, where the bill calls for the end to expansion, and there's a small reduction that year. But generally speaking, over the 10-year budget, Medicaid spending goes up every
Yeah, but so does healthcare inflation. We go through these games every single year. Inflation is going up a lot faster than the money that you're putting in. Bottom line is, tell me, let me get back to one question.
Sure.
Why do you think the Walton family needs a $52 billion tax break?
My guess is that you're basing that assertion on the only tax detail that we have in the budget.
The repeal of the
repeal
estate tax. Exactly.
Right. And if we want to have a talk about why we're repealing that, I'd be more than happy to do that.
Good, let's tell me.
Because ordinary people are paying more.
No, ordinary people do not have a wealth of $128 billion.
The average,
That's not an ordinary person.
The average increase across this nation since
You're not
the
answering the question. The question is,
105%.
Answer the question. The wealthiest family in America gets a $52 billion tax break as a result of the repeal of the estate tax.
That's correct.
Tell the American people why you think that's good when you cut Medicaid and you cut programs for kids.
Again, we don't cut Medicaid. We're talking about repealing Obamacare. The results
Throwing
that you
23
mentioned,
million people off of health insurance. That's right.
which is a CBO number that I think you just agreed could be wrong at the
No, I
outset
didn't
of this
agree to
meeting.
that at all.
Okay. That we repeal Obama.
Why does a billionaire family get a $52 billion tax break?
Because
Please tell the American people.
Because we think it's wrong that real ordinary folks lose coverage, and we want to get rid of
Ordinary
the plan.
people. Is
Yes.
the Walton family an ordinary family?
No, they're not. They're extraordinary. But ordinary people are losing coverage today under Obamacare.
I asked you
and
why
we
the
repeal it.
wealthiest family in America is getting a $52 billion tax
And I'm answering the
break.
question by saying because we repeal Obamacare.
No, you and the estate tax, which applies to the top 0.2%.
Senator, okay, I'm sorry. I thought the assumption was we were looking at the tax reductions that are contained in Obamacare. Repeal.
No, that's not what we're
You're
talking
mentioning the
about.
estate
No, no,
tax.
no.
Okay.
We're talking about the repeal of the estate tax, which you just mentioned.
The budget assumes a deficit-neutral tax plan, because when we wrote the budget, we did not have nearly enough specifics to assume what you're assuming, which is the specific reductions. Yes, the proposals that the White House published about 3 or 4 weeks ago, the principles that we set forward, does include a reduction of the estate tax.
Repeal of the estate tax, sir.
You said, yeah, you're absolutely right. It is a repeal of the estate tax, but I think it's mathematically impossible to take those general principles and assume a direct impact on a particular family.
No,
can't
that's
do it.
not-
Nobody can do it. I've seen estimates from groups that say, oh, it's going to
No,
add the
that's not-
deficit by
that's-
$2 trillion to $10 trillion. People
No,
are just
that's
making
really
up
not
numbers.
true. I mean, we don't know when people are going to be dying, that's for sure. But you can
I'm sorry,
make
you say
those
we
estimates.
don't know that people are going to
No, you don't know when somebody is going to be dying. But the truth is that if the family is worth
I'm
100,
pretty sure they're going to die eventually.
that we can be pretty sure of.
Well, at least we agree on something.
So yeah, that to me is just classic Bernie Sanders. It's going to go down as one of my favorite clips of all time, because I just think that it really shows that Bernie Sanders is maybe the one politician left in the country that still has courage to stand up to these asshole oligarchs and Republicans, and he still stands up to Democrats as well, who just want to do the bidding of millionaires, billionaires, and the elites. So there are a couple of things in there that really irked me that Mick Mulvaney said. He said the results of the CBO are awful. Right. I would agree that they're awful, because if you throw 24 million people off of their health insurance, that's indeed pretty awful. But Mick Mulvaney wasn't talking about, throwing people off of their health insurance being awful. He contends that the CBO was awful. Their score of the bill was awful because it was wrong. It was incorrect. No. As Bernie Sanders rightfully pointed out, Mick Mulvaney just didn't like the results, so he then decided to attack the CBO when Bernie Sanders pointed out that, this is your guy. Why are you attacking your guy? Because you don't like the conclusion that he came to. So that was absolutely frustrating, but I'm not as frustrated because Bernie Sanders actually called him on it. So a lot of these clips, most of the time, politicians will say something and then they'll go unchecked. And so I have to come out and express frustration and correct them and tell them why they're wrong. But Bernie Sanders did my job for me here, and it was just amazing. Now, another thing that he says here, we don't cut Medicaid, we're repealing the Affordable Care Act. So what he's contending, with a straight face, mind you, is that by repealing the Affordable Care Act, that's not the same thing as cutting Medicaid, even though if you repeal the Affordable Care Act, you in fact cut Medicaid. So what he's saying here, he's arguing based on semantics, and it's just so disingenuous. I don't even know how he was able to not burst out laughing, because that's how ridiculous that claim is. No, I'm not cutting Medicaid, we're repealing the Affordable Care Act. Right, which is leading to a cut to Medicaid. I mean, it's just ridiculous. How can you argue that? How can Republicans seriously argue that? It's just, it honestly almost made my head explode when I heard him say that. He also states here, you can't assume that repealing the estate tax would benefit one family, except it's meant to benefit the very wealthy. So if you specifically call out one family, the Waltons, who are just multi-billionaires, they have a large amount of wealth, of course that's going to impact them in a way that will obviously benefit them. But yet, we're not supposed to look at one family and see how that's going to affect them. Donald Trump isn't opting for a repeal on the estate tax because he wants his own children to benefit from this, right? No, of course not. Why would he do that? He's looking out for us. It's why he keeps pushing forward, these bills that cut taxes for the wealthy and harm the poor. Mick Mulvaney is just one of the biggest weasels in politics today, and there's a lot of them, but Mick Mulvaney is certainly towards the top of the list. Now, the budget that Donald Trump proposed, I mean, what he's doing, what the Republican Party is doing, is they're starving the poor and they're giving more money to the very, very wealthy. And it's just disgusting. And here's what I think I've concluded, and you can disagree with me. So when it comes to both parties, they're both terrible. Democrats just don't care about us. I mean, you hear Tom Perez all the time say, the Republicans don't give a shit. No, that's Democrats. Democrats don't give a shit about people. Republicans, on the other hand, they actually hate the working class. They hold us in contempt. For some reason, they don't like us. We're a nuisance because we get in the way. We protest when they try to cut our health insurance and give more tax breaks to their donors and their friends who are wealthy and billionaires. So that's basically what it's come down to. We've got Democrats who don't give a shit about people, and we've got Republicans who just outright hate people. I mean, this is what we see in the policies that both parties continue to produce. But I mean, getting back to this budget here, it's a complete joke. It's just a joke. So I'm so glad that Bernie Sanders called him out and just would not let anything that he was trying to say get by that was bullshit. So he held his feet to the fire, and this is what you have to do when you see an elected official and a public official doing something that will hurt the public.
Support this podcast by joining the independent progressive media revolution today at humanistreport.com.